Hi everybody! Since I last saw you, I have made a big leap. I am no longer publishing other authors' novels. Instead, about a year ago, I made the switch to becoming an indie author full-time myself. I am finishing up my second novel, Day Drinkers. So I'll give you the elevator pitch for Day Drinkers so you know what we're talking about, what kind of novel I am working on. It is a Caribbean sailing thriller, and it is based on my experience of living in the Caribbean, working on a boat, and working within visual distance from Epstein's island, so Little St. James. While I was in the Caribbean, a lot of people were working for him, and there was a lot of involvement with him. So my witnessing that gave me the idea for this story. Now, it's completely fictional. It is in my absurd style, sort of a Vonnegut satire, sort of dark humor novel. So before we dive into the day of an indie author, let's take 4 seconds to start our day with some healthy habits. In the morning, I wake up at sunrise, and since I'm my own boss, I can follow the circadian rhythms and tend to wake up seasonally with the sun. I like to meditate for about half an hour or walk the dog in the morning air. And then I will make myself a cup of coffee or a smoothie. My very favorite recipe is avocado berry dark chocolate. And that gives me the energy for the next few hours. Once I sit down at my desk, the first thing I do is check emails and my feeds. Now, I've tried to move this task to the afternoon, but it is so distracting to have a full inbox and have posts out there, and I don't know how they have done. So it's really impossible for me to just dive right into writing and not check those messages. If I'm in active development on a manuscript, I will then spend 2 to 3 hours writing. For Day Drinkers, the manuscript was finished about a month ago. I sent it out to my first readers and have been working on a revision. So the second draft was finished a few days ago. I have the second draft also out with my editor. I have a special kind of editor for this particular book. She is a developmental editor, but she also works for Cruising World magazine, so she has real-world sailing experience. And for this book, it's really important that the technical details are right. I check for her notes and suggestions, and have been applying those to the second draft. We're in third draft now, and that's going to probably be the final manuscript. It's already put into vellum, so I'm formatting the book for ebook and print. I have been working with my cover designer. This is the second book he's worked on for me, and I absolutely love him. A cover designer that will work with you on going to build a unified brand will be a little more pricey, but as you see, the covers that he has designed are phenomenal. Second most important things you can do as a writer is to read. Now, it isn't mandatory that you read. However, in these videos am going to share what I am reading, and although it isn't required. So the book that I read this week is Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. And I found this book through Fable. Fable is a social media network for readers and writers, but really more for readers and book discovery. And on Fable, I joined the Weirdo Book Club, and it was last month's selection. I knew about Chuck Tingle from his branding, and after I talk about the book, I want to talk a little bit more about that because I think his branding is some of the best out there. It's really brilliant, and it's in line with the way I brand myself as an author. So as indie authors, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but let me talk about the book first. So Camp Damascus is Chuck's traditionally published horror. He also writes, as an independent author, a sort of queer, campy romance. He produces quite a few books in as an independent author in that genre. But as a traditionally published author, through Tor, he writes horror. It is subversive horror. It is tropes turned on their head, and this is certainly no different. It's the first I've read, but I've heard that that's the case with all of his books. In this case, it is the trope of the summer camp or the sleepaway camp, yet Chuck makes it a evangelical conversion camp for queer youth, so LGBTQ youth, and it's so much fun. It has so much heart. So the protagonist's name is Rose, and she has faith, and she's part of the community, but she doesn't realize that she had been sent to this camp, and then her memory had been wiped. So this her congregation that runs the camp, and I can't tell you too much because I don't want to spoil it, but they employ demons to convert the kids and then wipe their memories. The characters themselves, it's a found family, so Rose finds other kids that have gone through Camp Damascus and this conversion therapy, and they start to recover their memories and then attack the camp, and it gets very gory and fast-paced, and it's super, super, super fun. So I would say 4.5 stars to 5 stars for this book. Highly recommend. And I think I'm going to definitely become I am now a Chuck Tingle fan. His fans are called buckaroos and ladybucks. And a little piece of trivia, my son's name is actually Buckaroo. I named him Buckaroo long before I knew anything about Chuck's fans' names. Yeah, so that dovetails into Chuck's branding itself. And so I consider myself a neo-absurdist or a absurdist revivalist, and Chuck absolutely is. I mean, he does queer lit, he does, romance and horror, but at his heart, I would call him an absurdist, like Vonnegut, like myself, and his whole persona is fantastic. It's really, really engaging. So Chuck Tingle is a pseudonym. He only appears in disguise in public, so he wears a pink pillowcase over his head with sunglasses, and then "Love is real" is his motto, and it's written in Sharpie on the pillowcase. His motto, I didn't really understand what it meant, but now that I've read one book, and I can tell that it's probably going to carry through. At their heart, it really is about real emotions, community, and love. So I get the motto now. But his branding through social media, through his Instagram, through his website, is full of Easter eggs. His bio is a bunch of half-truths and, wild goose chases. And it's so much fun. Now, I would like it to be like Chuck, but it's not really authentic to me. I love clues and misdirection and fun marketing like that. But he is above and beyond. I could never really meet the level that Chuck brings it to. And perhaps I'll be brave enough to venture into his queer romance. So just so you know, all of the titles have pounded in the butt in them. So funny, and yeah, I'm intrigued. So I will perhaps review a pounded in the butt title for you. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do that. Speaking of that, I probably will not get to one of those books next week. However, it's a toss-up between Boy Parts, All Fours, or Woo Woo. So let me know in the comments which one you'd like me to review next. As you can see, I like the sort of weird fiction, and that's something that we should talk about in a video in the future as well. So I feel as authors we have two paths we can really follow. We can write to market, so we can write to a large audience that exists out there, or we can draw an audience or create an audience for us. So I would say that, before you get down to genre, the two choices you have to make are you a push author or a pull author? Being a push author is far easier because there's already a big defined audience out there. Being a pull author means that you have to design comprehensive branding that lets people know what you're creating, and you have to convince them that it's worth taking a chance on to read and follow you. And that tends to be more time-consuming, more expensive. However, you have a lot more autonomy and you can write to your passion. So your life experience or what you're passionate about, like Chuck writes what he's passionate about. And I also write what I'm passionate about. So yeah, that's one of your major decisions as an author. In the next videos, let's take some deep dives into what I'm working on right now with my manuscript for Day Drinkers. Kirkus will be featuring my previous book in an editorial. So they've selected Zone Trip as an editorial feature. So I'm going to be talking with them about placing some advertisements for my summer release. So Day Drinkers in the magazine, we'll talk about that. I'll talk about the publicists that I am interviewing. I have an interview with Smith Publicity, so we can talk about that. We can talk about how it's going with my editor and book cover designer. Those are both wrapping up. So I'll be finishing the final draft of the manuscript and starting to plan for that launch. Getting the advanced review copies out through NetGalley, potentially Edelweiss. So please subscribe. Yeah, I hope you're interested in following me on this journey and releasing this next book with me.